So this is absolutely unscripted, but I did make my notes. So there are 5 things that I will talk about. But that's it. I just have notes of 5 things that I will talk about. And today's topic that I've chosen is being in the hot seat of accountability. Why I say that is I want to take an account of things that I have been intentional about and then use my ability to keep being hyper intentional towards the path I'm on. But before I say that, I have screwed up a lot. Who hasn't? And even before coming live right now, I was freaking out. But that's something I do every day, every time. For the last 20 years, even before it was the concept of live. And by the way, I'm just so glad to announce now the comments from Twitter also can come in. So if you're on Twitter, feel free to comment. I will put your comments up. And everywhere else. I think right now I'm live on Facebook, Twitter, or X, and YouTube. So as I said, today's topic is being in the hot seat of accountability. So first of all, let me take account of 5 things that I struggle with despite teaching others how to overcome that. And despite always being successful, or at least I should say 9 out of 10 times being successful, I still do struggle with these things every single time. And it's about using strategies, patterns, resources, and tools that have helped me over the years that I've learned from other professionals and my therapist and my family and my friends and so many people. So let me know where you're tuning in from. Don't shy in saying hello. I would love to acknowledge you and put your comments up. If you have any questions while we do this, feel free to put those questions up as well. So, as I said, there are 5 points that I'll be talking about. The first thing is being an empath can be a really, really consuming experience. It's a really consuming trait to have. It's not a trait that I'm choosing or you can choose. It's a trait that we have as individuals. If you're an empath, you're just an empath. You care for people. You feel others' pain. You almost feel it like the way they feel it, right? So being an empath it is something really, really nice to be. It is something that this world needs more of. But at the same time, being an empath can be so consuming that it can become an obstacle. It can become a barrier in your own journey, in your own progress and growth. So it's about finding the right balance. And as I said, I don't have a script and I don't have a real goal here as to what I want to achieve with this conversation. So feel free to have an open dialogue. I'm just sharing. This is just Sebastian bites. I'm just sharing the bites that come to my mind spontaneously. One of the things that has been constantly coming to me is with everything that's going on around in the world. And look, I talk fast when I am thinking too much. So that's what's happening right now. So there is so much going on in the world, and being an empath, there is no button that I can switch off to not tune in, to not understand, to not feel for people, to not carry their pain and emotions into me and not be affected by it. That's just not who I am. If I see people in pain, it impacts me. It makes me upset, angry, sad. And although it is so consuming and sometimes draining, there is no way I want to be anything but an empath. I want to carry the light of empathy as far as I can, as long as I can. Let me just acknowledge a couple of people that I just saw here. Hi, Joe. Thank you for tuning in. Joe is joining us from UK, and she just said, it's a challenge when you'd rather turn the empathy ability off. It, that's what it is for me. I mean, I don't want to turn it off. At the same time, it can be quite challenging. So yes, that's, I think for me, it's about trying to find the balance. A lot of times I do slip up. A lot of times I get carried away. I don't want to use the term carried away because I am not getting carried away. I'm really feeling and expressing and being my genuine self about how I feel about certain situation, even if it's impacting others. What's happening in the world, how it's impacting others, that matters to me. It does impact me. And I would rather feel that than just turn it off, be numb, feel nothing, and walk away. Having said that, and in last 70 plus days, I've done that several times. Gone to one extreme of being an empath and feeling so hurt, pained and exhausted and drained, and then realizing I need to rein it in, not because I don't care, not because I do not value what's happening or what I'm experiencing about others, and not because I don't have an empathy for them, not because I do not sympathize with them, but because I realize I need to conserve my strength, my emotions, and I need to take care of myself to make sure I can use my ability to support others in the best way that I can, which is where accountability comes. So I take an account of, okay, how is my empathy right now becoming an obstacle for me? And what are the things that I can do? Again, taking an account of what are the things what skills do I have? What resources do I have to use my ability as an empath to provide, to be a resource for others rather than an obstacle myself, rather than feeling depressed and sad and so much in pain that I'm useless to others. So for me, it's important to have that account and use that ability and hold myself accountable, use my accountability to be an empath in a positive way, in a constructive way. In fact, since Joe is here, I'm actually going to use the right term in a developmental way so that I can be a better person in what I can give and the world can get better from me. Joe says, there are times when the pain is too great though. And that's it, Joe. I have been there, and I would say the last 70 days have been so freaking, I don't even want to use the words. It has been really, really difficult. And then it's, not just what's happening in the world, there's things happening around people in my life, people I care for. Um, there's always something happening. That's human life. But I choose to remain an empath, and not that I can switch it off, but I choose to be a proud empath and be okay with being an empath, yet find a little balance. And for me, that step is talking to my friends, talking to my therapist, talking to my family, people who can be a little reality check, people who know how to give me a little push and go, hey, you've got to look after yourself. Hey, maybe this is impacting you too much. Maybe switch off for a little bit. Different strategies will work for different people, but what I'm saying is the importance of balance, finding a balance. So, because you've got to remind yourself, if I myself break down, I'm not going to be a good resource for anybody, and my empathy is going to go wasted, right? It's like the first aid principle. Before you go and give somebody else first aid, you've got to check the room to see, are you yourself going to get in danger? Because if you are in danger, you're not going to save anybody else. You will become a liability yourself. Now you'll need another person to save both of you. So I think that goes a long way. In just thinking that way, I assess the risk. When I realize, I reach out to my people, I find a little balance, and then I go, okay, what can I do using my ability to be an empath in a more effective way? So that's point one. Now let's talk about past traumas. And these points have no relation with each other. Just five things that came to my mind. I quickly noted down. So, we're going with that. So the next thing that I have is past trauma can still make my life very, very, very difficult. And when I say it makes my life difficult, the past trauma has an ability to constantly make me feel guilty about things that I'm not responsible for, or things that in past people told me I'm responsible for, so that they can make me feel guilty, so that they can manipulate me. And then that became a pattern, that became a habit. It became second nature. So sometimes it's difficult to identify, am I really guilty, or am I just feeling guilty because that's what I've gotten used to? And another thing is fear. So past trauma takes me into this imbalanced place in this swinging pendulum of fear and guilt, fear and guilt, fear and guilt. In not only I'm in a pendulum, I feel like I'm getting slapped from both sides. Somebody comes and slaps from here, sends me through towards fear, get a slap from here, sends me towards guilt. And I hang in between, trying to just hold myself steady enough to go, okay, what am I doing? Why am I feeling this way? So for me, it's really, really important that when I'm feeling guilty about something, when I'm feeling afraid of something, to ask myself, A, am I doing something wrong that doesn't agree with my values, with my integrity? Do I have an intention of hurting someone or manipulating someone? Or, because one thing that I always say, I can lie to the whole world, but I can never lie to myself. You can literally pretend and live a life full of lies, but you will wake up every day, look in the mirror, and you will always know that you lied, right? So for me, and I have big 6 feet by 4 feet mirrors just for that purpose, because I love talking to myself in the mirror, not as a narcissist, but as an accountability check, and go, you lied, right? Or, you're strong, right? Or, you are capable, right? Or, you're going to be okay. You've done this before. You can fight it again. So I use mirrors to empower myself, to talk to myself, to do a little bit of self coaching. Again, Joanna, that's a word you gave me. So do a little bit of self coaching. Use all those tools and resources that I give to my clients, to my friends, to my relatives, to empower them. I use those resources on myself. I use those values and advice on myself to go, you're not. First of all, identify if I am really guilty, and if I am, then what steps do I need to take to undo my misdeed? And mostly it's not that. But when I realize, oh, I'm just feeling guilty because it's a pattern, because that's how I was made to feel This is trauma talking. It's not really my fault. It's not something I did. It's not even my responsibility. So there's a statement that I say a lot to myself and to others. The result of your actions is not my burden to carry. So when I realize I am carrying the result and the outcome of somebody else's actions as if it's my action, as if it's my doing, I go, wait, no, this is not your burden to carry, Sebastian. This is not your problem to solve. Back off, step away, think. Same with fear. When I'm scared of something, I do ask myself, why am I scared? What is scaring me? And what can I do to change that? What can I do to just help myself to understand, is there a way out of this fear? Is there is is there something that can make me feel strong? Is there somebody I can reach out to who can give me the courage? Or do I need to change something in what I'm doing or the place I'm in or the situation I'm in to not be afraid of where I am right now? Life is complex. I don't always have answers, but just asking those questions helps me to find some clarity, find the direction, or realize who can I talk to who can help me in that process. So one of the things with past traumas, and I am reading my notes right now, the little points, just the points that I have. See, this is guilt talking. See, catching myself. That's what I do. I try to verbalize when I catch myself so that I can not only recognize, but I can use that as a weapon to recover from my guilt, to recover from my fear, and come back stronger. Come up stronger and go, "Mm-mm, that was wrong. Don't do it." So I push myself towards taking an action on the triggers that are making me feel guilty, that are making me feel afraid. I try and identify those triggers. Sometimes I write them down. I go, okay, this is why I'm scared. This is why I feel guilty. Then I question myself, what role did I play in it? And what role can I play now to overcome that guilt or fear? And if I cannot, then whose help can I take? And do I need to walk away from a thing, a situation, a relationship, any of that? And once I have that clarity, as I said, I don't always have 100% clarity, but it gives me a direction to go into to find the ultimate clarity that I need. And that's what I encourage all my clients to do. And I'm, glad that I go back to self-coaching thing that Joanna talks about. I'm glad that I ask myself and go, that's what I told that client. Why am I not doing that myself? That's a kick that gets me going like, oh yeah, I know what the solution is. I know what steps do I need to take. And that makes a difference. So that's about past traumas. Can still, before I move on to the next topic, I do want to say past traumas can push you into patterns that are negative, toxic, or counterproductive. And I think the only way I've found to solve that is to have a conversation with the person who might be either the catalyst of those triggers without them realizing they're not necessarily responsible. Well, most likely they're not. It's just your past trauma making some of their unintentional actions make you feel triggered, and you go into this pattern where you have to defend yourself when you're not under attack. So the biggest thing that I have learned to do is reach out to that person and say, hey, this is what I feel. Is that what's happening? There's always a risk of them getting offended, but here's something that I've learned. If people truly understand you, truly respect you, and love you, they would rather try to understand where you're coming from, why do you feel triggered, what's happening. They would rather try to have a dialogue and understand how they can play a part in fixing and improving the relationship in removing the trauma and the guilt and the fear rather than attacking you. And if they get all defensive and offensive and they attack you and they get all patronizing and all that, then probably you were right. There was a reason they were triggering something. And if they don't do that, if they take it positively, if they are happy to have a conversation, then they're the right people to continue engaging with, continue working with, continue having around you. Either way, it's a win-win situation, right? Now, let's talk about the third thing that I've written down here, which is kind of mix of the traumas and being an empath, but I kind of want to handle that as an independent topic. Is I also have a habit of assuming, of taking other people's challenges. If somebody has a financial challenge, I make it my problem to guide them out of that, even if they didn't ask for that support. I lose my sleep over, oh, how are they going to eat? Where they're going to live? All that. I've done that in the past. I don't do that as much. And I would say I actually don't do that at all now. I have, again, my checks and balances and reality check people who help me recognize that I'm going in that direction. And I do that myself. Journaling helps me a lot. What I'm saying is, we do, especially empaths, we assume other people's challenges as if we have to solve them, as if we have to take care of them, as if it is our responsibility to fix other people's life. I also would say that's kind of savior complex, where you feel like you've got to save the whole world, you've got to save the entire creation and three other galaxies. I learned to tell myself, no, Sebastian, that's not your problem. Being kind and empathetic and caring doesn't mean that you have to solve everybody's problem. Yes, you can guide people. Yes, you can support. You can be a good ear. You can be a shoulder to lean on, but you don't have to solve everybody else's problem. And I will say a little bit mean thing here. It's mean according to me, because I didn't have too many people for me to lean on when I needed people. At the end of the day, and it's not about them being mean, it's not about other people being mean, it's about the fact at the end of the day, it's my actions, it's what I do is going to solve my problems. Until I take action, until I speak up, until I do something, my problems are not going to go away. And others can push me a little, they can guide me a little, they can help me a little in different ways. Unless I have taken a solid and concrete action, I'm going to go back in the same pattern. I'm going to find myself in the same situation. So the only person who can solve the problem that they're dealing with is themselves. You cannot solve it for them. I cannot solve it for them. And that's something I still have a little habit. So what I do for that is, number one, I tell myself it is not my responsibility. I start by questioning myself, is that your responsibility? And of course, mostly the answer is no, it's not. So when I get the answer from my mirror that it's not my responsibility, I go and talk to him. I always try and have a conversation and remind them what I can do for them, but what they're going to do for themselves within a limit, because they ultimately have to figure out what they've got to do for themselves, or they've got to get professional help or other things. But what I'm saying is, everything needs to have a little boundary that we need to recognize and we need to keep and maintain, because at the end of the day, a healthy boundary is for everybody, not just for stopping people. Boundary doesn't mean stay out. Boundary means this is mine. Please don't come into this. That is yours. Please don't put it on me. I will carry my burden and fix it. You carry yours. What we can do is every uh, now and then we can give each other a little push. We can help each other lean on each other. We can help each other figure things out. We can also help each other, you know, in more practical ways to a limit. So that's what I remind myself, and it usually helps me a lot. Now, the next part, a cycle of self-doubt and inaction. So this is a bit complicated one. I think in my head it is. I don't know. It could be different for you. It could be same for you. I often go into this cycle of self-doubt that leads to inaction, not taking an action because I'm struggling with self-doubt. And I feel like if I do this action, if I take this action, maybe I'll make a mistake. Maybe I'll not be good enough. Maybe I am stupid, all those kind of negative and unhelpful thoughts. And that inaction then puts me in a place that either I'm too late or I'm too bad at it or I failed at it, and then that failure or that delay or that whatever did not happen in action takes me back into the self-doubt seat, because now I think, oh, you know what, you can't do it. See, you couldn't do it last time. You just froze. You didn't take an action. You didn't solve it. So it's a cycle that I get in living with anxiety. That's very easy for me to get into. Again, I come back to the same thing, holding myself accountable, take an account, find my ability, bring the accountability into action. Again, I ask myself, where is the self-doubt coming from? What action do I need to take? One thing I will say here is, even if you take a small, little, tiny bit of action, take some action, because sometimes all you need is a little action to feel energized and positive enough and strong enough and clear enough to take the full action, to do everything that needs to be done. And that works with me. Very often, when I am feeling down in the dumps, I don't want to exercise, I don't want to talk to anybody, all those things happen. And then what I do is I just tell myself, you know what? I'll just take one action. I'll just step out of bed, wash my face, everything else, okay, I'm feeling like I don't want to do. But I'm going to make something really delicious in the breakfast that I enjoy. And that's the reward I'm going to give myself to, just for being able to get off my bed. What happens? That energizes me. That gives me more strength. Now I go, okay, let me do the next step. Let me take the next step. Let me take one more step. So little by little, these little actions of taking myself out of that self-doubt and self-loathing and self lack of appreciation, I don't know what to call it, these tiny little actions give me the courage to go the next step and the next step and the next step, from which I'm able to recover and come out of the cycle of self-doubt and inaction, and it becomes clarity, confidence, and action. One thing I do tell myself is, you don't always have to achieve 10 out of 10. Sometimes you'll achieve only 1 out of 10. But here's the thing, even if you achieve 1% of the 100%, that's 100% more than the 0% that you were not going to achieve if you did not even try, if you just gave up. Okay. And again, we'll talk about give up and everything another time. Um, Now, one thing of everything that I've just talked about, one thing that I talk about is I have this habit, I'm going to call it a habit, I think at this point, if I'm feeling sad or if I'm overwhelmed, if there's so much going on. Recently, there was a technology failure. I did not even know for quite a while. Somebody else in the team knew. They went into this cycle, and when I realized they've been in this cycle where something went wrong, so they just kind of got stressed. I got stressed. I wasted a whole day thinking, oh my God, why didn't they inform me? Am I not a good leader? Um, do they not trust me enough to reach out to me? The point is, they don't have to reach out to me. They have other levels before reaching out to me. So they did what they needed to do. But as I said, I take it on myself. So I started doing that. Um, so I'm kind of losing train of my chain of thoughts, but I'm talking about routine and habits. Yes. So I ignore, so because of the stress or overwhelm or anxiety and all that, sometimes I ignore the routine and the habits that help me to stay positive, to stay active. In return, what happens is when that routine is broken, when those habits, good habits are broken, then I find myself back in the self-loathing space. So for me, once again, I go back to that little step that I said, just out of the whole set of routines, maybe if I have 10 things that I do for first thing in the morning, I convince myself to do just one. Just do the one thing. Just take one step out of the whole routine and see how you feel. I finish it, I accomplish it. That gives me the strength and energy and motivation to go, you know what, you did it. Maybe let's do one more step. And that leads to the third step and the fourth step. Ultimately, I find myself, at least even on a very bad day, I find myself doing just enough that when I close the day, I feel like, oh, wow, that was going to be a shitty day, but look what you've achieved. Look what you've accomplished. It changes how I feel about myself. It answers the, past trauma. It answers taking others' burden on myself. It answers the cycle of self-doubt and all that. And it makes the day a lot better than what I thought it would be. One last thing, which I did not write here, I'm just going to say is, which I struggle with, but I still do, and often that leads to something good, is to tell myself I don't have to solve everything right now, right here. If something is failing, if something is not going right, that's okay. Just observe and understand, why is it happening? What's the role that I am playing? What can I do to change things? Who can I reach out? Who else needs to play a role in solving all of this? And more importantly, am I trying to solve somebody else's problem that's not for me to solve? Or am I trying to take burden of somebody else that's not mine to carry? Or am I actually becoming a hurdle for others by trying to be in their business when I just got to back off and just go, well, okay, I know that I can do this. I know that I wish they would do it certain way, but is it my job? If it's not, back off, calm the F down, just allow myself to breathe. So that's my little, um, well, these were not little, but these are the bites that I have today. And I hope some of them help you. I hope, you find something out of this that makes you go, okay, I can do things in a smarter way. I can hold myself accountable. So again, remember what I say is, take an account of your ability, hold yourself accountable, and use your accountability to be more intentional, be more clear, be more confident of where you're going. And one important thing, it is okay sometimes to just pause. The world is not going to come crashing down. If just for a day you just paused and said, okay, screw it, we'll, we'll deal with this tomorrow. Sleep on it. Go for a run, go for a walk, take a day's break, allow yourself a little grace. And with that, I'm Szebastian One, the Almost Naked CEO, your intention strategist and entrepreneur maker. I'm here because I care and because I give a damn. See you next time.